The Metal Pack Pod is brought to you by The Metal Packager, the #1 digital resource for the global metal packaging market, and PPG Packaging Coatings, a global leader in innovative, safe, and reliable coatings. Welcome to our latest podcast on young packaging for future generations, building can-making skills at Ohio State University. Our host Alex Fordham interviews Domingo Gonzalez from Better Cans LLC about the Young Packaging for Future Generations seminar, created to build foundational knowledge in two-piece aluminium beverage can making amid retirements and potential knowledge loss in the industry. Run with Ohio State University and major industry suppliers and OEMs, the pilot seminar took place last August in Columbus, Ohio at the Food Science and Technology Department, delivering 14 lectures over 2 days to about 60 attendees, including can makers, users, co-packers, distributors, and OSU PhD students. This year's edition, taking place on April 14th, 15 spring session, repeats the 14 lectures with improvements and adds sessions on packaging safety and FDA compliance, flanging and inside reforming, and a general overview of the can making and beverage industry. Domingo emphasizes the venue as a neutral ground open to competitors and explains his 27-plus years experience across the supply chain as motivation to leave a legacy. Our podcast was recently voted in the top 10 packaging podcasts globally, so be sure to like our podcast and receive regular updates when the latest episode drops. Enjoy.
Good morning, Domingo. Looking forward to an interesting discussion about, obviously, your upcoming seminar, Young Packaging for Future Generations. I think certainly education of the next generation of can-making professionals is definitely a hot topic at the moment. We're seeing a lot of personnel within the industry, kind of that boomer generation reaching retirement age, and whether the industry has the individuals with the skill set to drive the industry forward is certainly up for debate.
Thank you so much, Alex, and good morning. And I really appreciate the opportunity to disseminate the purpose and the idea behind the seminar.
Excellent stuff. Just for those who perhaps aren't as well acquainted with the seminar, I understand it was more of a pilot phase last year, and the feedback seems to have been well received within the industry. So if you can just provide a little bit of background behind what the seminar is, the location, just a few kind of key points behind the seminar in general.
Absolutely. The seminar, A Young Packaging for Future Generation, it's in collaboration with the Ohio State University and main actors in the industry. When I say main actors, it's pretty much every single entity who is providing either raw material or equipment to the industry, and they play a huge role in these can making and co-packing industries. The first seminar was in August in Columbus, Ohio, at the Food Science and Technology Department, and we were able to cover 14 lectures about can making, co-packing in 2 days.
And in terms of those who were attending the event, were they mostly those new to the industry, or were there some individuals that have been in the industry for a while who are perhaps trying to brush up on their can making skill set? Who's the general demographic of those attending?
We were close to 60 attendees. So we were sold out, max capacity. And we had can makers and non-can makers. And when I say non-can makers, I'm talking about users, co-packers, and container distributors. And in terms of can makers, we had new can makers, new to the industry employees, and also can makers with a lot of experience from two main can makers in the US. We had also students from the Ohio State University, but all of them were PhD students. So they were ready to join the workforce.
We interrupt this episode for a brief segment from our sponsors, PPG.
Packaging coatings from PPG draw on our company's 140-year history of innovation. We never stop improving our solutions to meet the evolving needs of can makers and the marketplace. That spirit of innovation results in technology like the cradle-to-cradle platinum-rated PPG Innovel Pro. PPG Innovel Pro is the latest enhancement to the world's #1 non-BPA beverage can coating. It still doesn't use any bisphenol ingredients, but experienced can makers report that it now sprays like an epoxy. Follow PPG Packaging Coatings on LinkedIn or visit packagingcoatings.com to learn more about why PPG is the coatings partner for can making excellence.
This is a case of just those who want to, it's the self-development essentially, those who want to increase their skill set or learn, or those new to the industry. No, that's really interesting. Now in this year, can you just perhaps provide a little bit of a snapshot about the types of presentations that will be available for delegates?
Absolutely. For this spring session of the seminar, so we're going to have the 14 lectures, same 14 lectures, but at this time, we're including, I would say, 3 main lectures based on feedback that we receive from attendees and also collaborators. So one of them is packaging safety and compliance. So we're trying to tackle in one lecture what is packaging safety in terms of materials in contact with beverages, and also compliance with regulations like the FDA, flanging and inside reforming, because that's a critical process in the can making process in order for the attendees to understand properly. And this is coming from a speaker who has a lot of experience in the industry. He has 40 years working in die necking, flanging, and inside reforming, not only modeling in the real world, on the application. And the last one that is being developed with the CMI is the state of the can making and beverage industry. Why? Because we want the audience to understand the industry, the main actors, and also what is coming in terms of beverages, and how do we tie those beverages to the different can formats and sizes. So the rest of the agenda is it's going to be pretty much the same, but we're improving every single lecture, and we are reviewing every single section of the lecture at this time.
Excellent stuff. And just in terms of the kind of state of play within the can making business, I know it's certainly when I've been to a lot of trade shows in the last 4 or 5 years, the next generation of can making professionals, where do they come from? That's been a hot topic. Is that kind of part of the remit behind the event itself? Is that the fact that the industry is certainly in a state of flux? You've got a lot of people with a lot of knowledge that are perhaps retiring. So is that part of the remit behind the event, is to try and train the next generation of can making professionals?
I will say the main idea behind the seminar is to, yes, create the next generation of can makers with the right foundation, with the right knowledge, but at the same time, I will say reinforce or convey the right information and knowledge to existing can makers. And we know that this is a young industry. Can making is very young, from the late 50s. Lots of can makers are reaching the 35, 40 years of service, and they are leaving the industry. They are not coming back. And the new can makers, they need a neutral ground to understand the right fundamentals of can making. I call it the engineering art of making cans. Why? Because making cans is an art, but at the same time, we have a lot of engineering concepts that, if they are not well understood, is extremely difficult to run high efficiencies and a very smooth operation. And especially when you don't have the right foundation or the right knowledge, how can you innovate since you don't know the basics? So that's pretty much the main idea behind the seminar. New can makers with the right foundation, and also existing can makers. So in that way, they have the right knowledge, and then they can eliminate those bad theories that they had from the past.
Yeah, it's a case of, just because you've been in the industry for a period of time doesn't mean you're always, every day should be a learning day. I think it's that when we're all guilty of it in our respective jobs, when you're busy on a day-to-day basis, that sometimes that learning and self-development that can take a back seat. So I think it's very important to ensure that there's the right foundations and the right opportunities. And just want to touch upon a couple of things you said there about on a neutral background. So, what was the reasoning behind having the training at obviously at the Ohio State University? Traditionally, training would take place in a manufacturing facility or a can plant. What was the reasoning behind engaging with a local university?
Okay, being in collaboration with the Ohio State University, which is reputable university in Ohio and in the US, and at the same time, they have lots of experience in terms of workshops. They have the right facilities and equipment for packaging, food science and technology. That's the reason why I wanted to do it with the Ohio State University. And at the same time, the Ohio State University is neutral ground. So when I say neutral ground, that means everybody's welcome. So you can have companies from A, B, you can have brown owners in competing in the same market, but at the seminar and at Ohio State University being neutral ground, every single company is welcome. So there is no competition, there is no conflicts of interest. This is the right platform or the right scenario for everybody to learn and understand the foundations of can making and co-packing. That's the main idea, getting in collaboration with the Ohio State. Neutral ground. Everybody's welcome, no conflicts of interest at all.
That's a great idea, and I hadn't actually thought of it like that. And it makes perfect sense. I think that's particularly pertinent for this conversation. And whilst we're having this chat, I can see that this is a subject matter very dear to your heart. What's the reasoning behind your passion for inspiring the next generation of can making professionals? Obviously, you've been in the industry for a long time, but training seems to have taken a real sparked a real interest. I just want to find a little bit more about Domingo the man and your background behind the industry and kind of your passion for this.
Absolutely, Alex. I'm a mechanical engineer, and I have a master in science in manufacturing and material science. That combination took me, to the right place. And I will say the two-piece aluminum can for beverages. So in that scenario or in this industry, I can combine my manufacturing passion, aluminum passion, two-piece aluminum cans, and beverages. All of that together, that's pretty much what ignites my passion for this industry. And being with three main entities as a can maker, as a supplier of can makers, supplying aluminum, can body stock, and coated end stock, and also being user of those containers. So that gives me the right vision to understand what is needed in every single section of this supply chain, as a can maker, as a supplier, and as a user. In every single role, I have learned that knowledge it's power, and power in order to improve operations, in order to innovate, in order to advance in your career, and also advance or impact the conversion costs of what you're doing in terms of cans and ends. But I found that there was not a single entity open for everybody to learn the fundamentals. So that's the reason why I say I need to create that neutral ground, but neutral ground for new can makers and existing can makers, but at the same time, getting the information from the source. So from the right OEMs, from the right suppliers, and from people with a vast expertise. So in that way, they can convey the right information to the next generation. And that's pretty much what I have been trying to do in the last 27 plus years of experience in this industry. And if probably I would like to leave a legacy, leave something for the next generation so this industry can continue producing cans and competing with other types of packaging.
No, that's fantastic, and certainly you are leaving a fantastic legacy where I'm sure there's many more years of activity yet. But no, that's great to hear, and I know from our side, the Metal Packager, just congratulations on what you're doing here. I think it's very noble, and I think certainly a gap for the industry because knowledge, as you say, knowledge is power, and I think the can making business has always been seen as very secretive and not necessarily willing to. So I think there's definitely a big gap here to hopefully inspire those within the industry. So no, congratulations on that side of things. And just one final thing from our side. How is the 2026 edition of the event shaping up?
This seminar, the spring session that is going to happen in April 14 and 15, we're trying to improve, to make it better in every single lecture. It's 60 minutes per lecture, 5 minutes to understand the speaker or the company behind that lecture, and then 55 minutes of knowledge share, but a very well-structured knowledge share, and also with key information in every single process or every single aspect of the can making and co-packing. The audience or the attendees will get information from the source, from main actors. So when we talk about, let's say, introduction to end making, so you're getting that information from the main OEM on end making. So the information that is being conveyed is the right and precise information that you can take it back. And one of the comments that I received from one of the attendees from the past seminar is that can makers, sometimes they don't have the opportunity to see the other side of can making, where the cans are going, how they are feel, double seam, what's important. And if we are sterilizing a, let's say, RTD coffee, why it's important, the cold spot, the lethality rate, all of that. So I would say at the seminar, we're going from dirt, which is bauxite, mining, creating that alloy, to finish can, and then a can safe and stable in the market. We're trying to give key information, the right foundation, so every single attendee can understand the whole supply chain on two-piece aluminum cans for beverages.
I appreciate your time, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.
Absolutely, Alex. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks very much, Domingo, and I'll speak soon.